Timber, it's brilliant to be in your company. I'm William Terite. Talofa lava maloelele if you're just joining us. It was undoubtedly a proud night for Pacific leadership at the New Zealand Leadership Awards last night, where our very own Don Mann, Chief Executive of the Pacific Media Network, took home joint first place for the Pasifika Leadership Award alongside Auckland University of Technology's Assistant Pro Vice-Chancellor Pacific Dagmar Dyck. Now, this recognition undoubtedly shines a spotlight on years of service from both of them in advocacy for Pacific communities across Aotearoa. The duo join me now this morning, fresh off last night's highlights. Talofa lava, thank you both for your time and congratulations. This is awesome.
Great to see you, people.
Thank you both for your time. I'll start with you, Don, perhaps the big boss there, so no pressure. But I suppose let's go, Don, with what this means to you after your name was called out last night.
Oh, that's this wonderful recognition for PMN, actually. And all the, not only all of us who work at PMN at the moment, but for all those who have been part of PMN over its sort of 35 years of existence. I think we've just celebrated our 35th or might be 36th birthday. Prior to PMN, of course, was the Auckland Pacific Island Community Radio Trust. So I think it's due recognition for everyone who's been a part of PMN. But also, I just sort of mentioned, I've got it for Pacific's people who take up leadership spaces right across various sectors. And, I was fortunate last night to be standing alongside Dagmar and Masena Konewhere from Masterton Council. It's recognition for a lot of things, and there's just, I guess, it's gratitude to be there as well.
And now coming to you, Dagmar, what does this recognition mean to you?
Equally, really honoured to receive the award. I think it also speaks, and John, you mentioned it first off when you spoke last night, when we talked about our parents. And we have a lovely connection, Don and I, because both our parents were part of the first wave of Pacific people coming to New Zealand and so our parents have a lovely connection. And we both talked about how we'd rung our parents yesterday to say, we're going to this awards ceremony. And I'm telling my mum, and Don Mann's there, and she's saying, that's just so wonderful. But I just know that it speaks to our parents' sacrifices and to our grandparents that came here as well. There's a legacy here and, just honouring the work of our ancestors that have come before us. So I just think there's that added layer to the work that we do. I think it's obviously one of the driving forces, I think, of why we do turn up into spaces that are often, uncomfortable or sometimes unwelcoming, but we know we do it because we've got a deeper purpose. So I think that was quite evident last night, receiving for both Don and I to receive. And I just have to say, Kingdom of Tonga was in the house last night, not only Tonga, but Vava'u. So we were pretty rapt about that.
Well, there you go. Exciting indeed. Hey, look, Don, I want to flicker back to you for a moment because PMN, which you're at the helm of, often described as the voice of our communities. How does this recognition further strengthen that, do you think?
I think I was thinking about it last night and this morning. I mean, one of the important things that we always say this inside the organisation, and sometimes we have to repeat it. We're very unique. We're by Pacific, for Pacific, so we're entirely Pacific governed, and we serve one audience, and that's Pacific people of Aotearoa. Now, it's not a homogenous audience, of course, because we're a very diverse community. But I think the amazing thing about PMN is we just double down on being Pacific. We don't try to be anyone else. We don't try to be RNZ. We don't try to be News Talk ZB or NZME. We just do our thing. And I think for as long as we do that, just do our thing, do who we are, do what we do, we'll be fine. It's when perhaps we try to copy or mimic other organisations who don't really have, when you look at our trustee and why we're set up, they don't really have the responsibility or the obligations, or I guess in a Tongan sense, but Tongians that we do. And Dagmar's absolutely right. There's a legacy that both Dagmar and I are tied into in terms of, Dagmar's mum Janie and my dad Don both coming out of the battle to New Zealand post World War II. But also for PMN. I mean, the legacy that PMN has. Anything about PMN, people like Dagmar Dyck, people like Safita Hauli, people like William Terite, Mrs. Brown, people who were around during those times in the 90s, Arthur Anai, Taito Philip Field, who pushed for this organisation. And so, there's a legacy that Dagmar and I have in terms of our families and our connections, but also the legacy to the wider Pacific community. And I'm sure it might be the same for Dagmar and AUT, I'm going to speak to Dagmar, but I'm sitting in a seat, really, that's my obligation is to uphold what those who have come before me at PMN have done. And there are many, many people, and we know them all because many of them still come on the show, and many of them still ring me to tell me what to do.
Dagmar, I just want to bring it to you now. In terms of, maybe this is perhaps going too far, but I suppose sometimes from the outside looking in, leadership in universities can sometimes feel removed from community. Your recognition last night shows that you are bridging that gap. I mean, could you perhaps elaborate on how you are bridging that gap?
It can be a perception of that, certainly, William, but I do know that here at the Office of Pacific Advancement here at Auckland University of Technology, and under the leadership of Damon Stalesa, our VC, we are in a very good position to be really advocating and recognising our beautiful Pacific students that come and choose this university. And, for us as Pacific, we know we come with our strengths, so we're very strength-based. We see our students as coming fully as themselves, and we want them to see that they connect into this university and have a sense of belonging. So that connection piece is really important for us. And when they see us in these leadership places or spaces, that's really important. Visibility really matters. And so that's also really critical to make sure that these places become spaces that our people are not only just belonging, but really achieving and striving in. And that's really, we see that in our students. We see them when they graduate and the success. And as we know, success is not individual in the Pacific, it's a collectiveness. And, it's the village that raises us all. And when we see our students cross that graduation stage, it's the families that you see that are gathered around them that are cheering. And it's just that wonderful sense of achievement. And, and then out into the world and out into our society. So really building, from the outside up into our society is really important. It's a privilege to do this work, honestly.
Yeah, I bet. Don, just coming back to you, it's no secret the media industry globally is going through quite a shift, viewer patterns, listenership patterns, they're changing. How do you lead during such a challenging time?
I think the first thing I just sort of say, make it slightly personal to start to answer the question. You've got to get over yourself really quickly because it's not about you. And Dagmar referenced it in terms of ultimately what this is about, And I think if you have a point of reference where you got to park your ego and it's not about you and ultimately we're serving the community and serving others, like PMN only really exists because our community allows us to. The moment we get ourselves ahead of our community or think we're too good for our community or start thinking that we know best, we're in trouble and we'll start tanking. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I know it's often said, and it's rolled out plenty of times here, tamata, but, we've got tremendous people at PMN. And well, look, you only a month ago were recruited by ABC Australia, and I'm glad you're back, but our people get recruited to the best roles around the world. You look at, if someone was to look at our website at the moment and wonder why have we all of a sudden got Oceania football on our website when we haven't had it for 2 months, it's because the Oceania football comms person is ex-PMN. And if you look around board tables right around the country where there's Pacific representation, you'll find that many of the Pacific people in boardrooms cut their teeth on the board table of PMN. So I think the first thing is we've got tremendous people. We've got tremendous people inside the organisation now. I'm blessed to work with a fantastic leadership team. And I can't stress how important sound governance is. we know what we're about. We talk about this term, the Moana-verse strategy. It's pretty simple. It's just, if you can imagine what a digital multimedia future looks like to be a Pacific person, that's the Moana-verse. And we stick to our strategy. We've got sound governance led by Lea and the team. I get to work every day alongside an incredible leadership team, and then I get to work. We've got some tremendous people inside the organisation, mate, and just stick to that. Get out of your own way. The moment you start thinking it's about you, you're part of the problem, and it's time to step aside.
Yeah. And Dagmar, just back to you. I mean, the beauty of your job as well is that you see next generation, you see young Pacific students coming through. With that being said, what gives you the most hope?
Certainly our young generation, our truth tellers, I talked about that last night, that they are, just unashamedly who they are, and they really just walk really authentic lives. And I just can see that is our future, and certainly making sure that we meet the needs of them is probably what keeps me up at night, to make sure that, our university is fit for purpose for this future generation and those coming through. I guess also part of my recognition, I think, is also that I'm an artist, and so I speak to that a lot in terms of how I enter into spaces, how I see myself and show up. So that's also a really important part of my leadership. And I think as an artist, you have to be authentic, because you learn very quickly. If you're not, you just fall over. And so I think that is really critical. And just recognising that the Amplify document was released last week from the Ministry of Culture and Heritage, and in there it talks about the importance of creative, innovative skills. And so that's also a really important part to provide that hope for our young people is in the arts. And I just want to say that. And, despite the fact that our arts curriculum is sort of under fire with this current reshaping of the curriculum, I just wanted to say that, we've got our arts, our Pacific arts are always embodied. There's always survival in our arts, and I stand on that as well.
And just to stick with you, just one more question on that. In terms of it being under fire, Dagmar, look, it's no secret race relations in this country is at a bit of a lull. Social cohesion is quite damaged as well. We've seen universities being under attack. What do you make of the current mood, and how important is it for you in your role at the university to perhaps push back against such rhetoric to ensure that, say, our Pacific students, for example, feel safe and welcome at university level?
Yeah, I certainly appreciate the climate we're under, and it is difficult times, but we always move through difficult times because we are a resilient people. And I think about my parents, my grandparents coming here, English as a second language, their education system, their experience was drastically more removed from when I was in school 30 years ago, where I was still seen as invisible. But we have come a long way with our education, Pacific education. We've got a long way to go. We hold the line and we say, stay connected to our core purpose as Pacific. Showing up into our spaces is equally important. But do acknowledge the difficult times we're in.
Yeah, certainly.
Well, can I just jump in there? Well, sure. Just one thing. It's interesting. Last night, there's a whole array of people last night. Yeah, but predominantly New Zealand Europeans last night, but a whole array of people. Every person, every representative of a corporate organisation who stood up had an attempt to speak Te Reo Māori.
Awesome.
And so sometimes I think, and I'm part of this too, we can get caught up in the political bubble or the politics we operate in, or the rhetoric of politics that we operate in. But outside in everyday streets and in everyday organisations, people are just getting on with it. And what was incredible last night was watching, baby boomer Pākehā executives go up there and have a go and give their mihi a go, and every person to a T did it. And whilst I think, we can get caught up in the rhetoric of the times, our communities are just getting on with it. We're intermarrying, and Dagmar and I are, the families that we represented, multi-ethnic families, we're part of that. And you look at today, there are thousands of people in Ngaruawahia today, for Karaneha, Tuetahi, or Queenie Ngāwai, Hono i Te Pō, and the community's just getting on with it. So I just think it's important to remember that, and sometimes be conscious of sometimes the bubbles we're in.
Yeah.
Look, final question for you both. The takeaway from last night, if there's one message you could give to young Pacific leaders, what would it be? I'll start with you, Don, and then perhaps wrap up with you, Dagmar.
I was talking to Filippo Motulalo, he's the head of our Tongan programming. There was actually a few hours before I attended the event, and he reminded me, and I mentioned it last night, he reminded me of the Tongan proverb, koe kaloa tonga, koe whakamalo, which basically denotes that, a treasure of being a Tongan is gratitude and humility. But the point I make to young people is, gratefulness, gratitude, and humility, they're not passive things. And the thing about being grateful, it doesn't mean, that doesn't relate to inaction, or that doesn't really relate to being happy with your lot. Because with gratitude requires action, requires to be courage, and you stick up for yourself, and so if we think about some of the troubles around the world, the notion of peace requires quite courageous action, not sitting back and being happy with your lot. And so if I was sort of I guess giving advice to young people, you just have to have a go, and don't, what you have now and what you are with now, it doesn't have to be that way, and don't settle for people telling you it always has to be that way. You just have a go and break the mold. And finally, so, Leo Pini Poriaki, Pauline Winter, and Sir Michael Jones played an important part last night, because they're part of the construct of the awards, and without people like them pushing themselves into the space, it wouldn't allow for Masina, Dagmar and I to be in the room, and it wouldn't allow a portal for others to come behind us.
And finally, yourself, Dagmar?
I would say my takeaway from last night was just really seeing just across the range of leaders that received awards last night, the words that I was hearing were things like community, the importance of connection, the values-led leadership. And this is just not just in the Pacific or Māori. So, this is Pākehā Palangi people realising just how important, for me, what I think is indigenous ways of leading. And I was really, really thrilled to hear that as a common thread across all of our, our speeches. And I take heart to that. And I think that, so for me, that speaks to, if you think about our youth coming through leadership, just be yourselves. Because I think this world is starting to really realise that we don't need to change. We don't need to be anything other than ourselves. They're ready, and we just need to make spaces for our young ones to come through. So equally, recognising our judges, but also I just want to do a shout out to Tuputoa and Aroa Armstrong, who sponsored our Pacific Leadership section, our category. They are doing equally important work in the corporate sector, where they are opening and, almost breaking down walls of inequity to make sure that our Māori and Pacific, corporate young people are making sure that their presence is felt in those parts of our sector. So, it's a full, all of us are involved in this. It's not anyone on our own island or siloed. The more we're connected and doing the work together, the stronger our nation will be. So, really encouraging.
Yeah, beautiful words indeed. Mei taki mata to you both for your time this morning, and congratulations again. That is the Auckland University of Technology's Assistant Pro Vice-Chancellor Pacific, Dagmar Dyck, and the Chief Executive of the Pacific Media Network, Don Mann. You both have a lovely rest of your day and a weekend when you get to it.
Mei taki.